Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy when nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings,
And ourselves.
we stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world heroes among us and every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place with love in us all. And you will find together we can save it all. And you will find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a better place, a whole new world
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear and MIDI too. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much RAM. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
IT.
Every Thursday night. Just like that.
Oh, and it's going to be highly educational tonight.
Yes. I think we're going to synthesize some good stuff tonight.
Yes, I'm surprised we've never covered this before because it's one
Mhm.
of my favorite topics next to piano night.
That's right. And we're going to get to sheet music night one day too.
Yeah, and when it comes to synthesizers, there's a couple of different kinds. So I really did want to cover this. I've been building up towards it, throughout the year,
Mhm.
and I love that I didn't have to really hunt for what I
Yeah.
was looking for tonight. This is one of those topics where you go down the and we now have some freshy channels that are
Mhm.
synth driven, which is awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to look at a little bit of gear. We're going to
Mhm.
learn about what a synthesizer really is, the history of it. And I feel this is one of the most important modern instruments.
Mhm.
You know,
One of the most
it-
versatile for sure.
yeah, because like you look at the history of instruments, and most of them, the sound they make and what they do, it's based on physical design and, you know, how the instrument is built. The synthesizer is an interesting one because it's not a physical thing per se, although there is some physical aspects to it.
Mhm.
The way that it actually constructs sound, it does have some physical characteristics, but
Mhm.
it's capable of sounding like practically anything.
And that's the thing is there's so much, art and science involved, and you don't have to know all the science to make the art, but at the same time, if you appreciate both, it really does kind of stand out. Because even when we talked about those early keyboards that we had, like the CZ1, something where you can really edit the waveforms and you can start with a square or a sawtooth or whatever and really build an entire sound out starting from there and make it sound like anything from a helicopter sound to a trumpet to whatever. Like you can get the kind of sound you're looking for just by tweaking a little this way and a little that way with all the different parameters.
Yeah, yeah. What I like about it is it actually can involve programming.
Mhm.
You can sculpt and shape your sound in a way that like a programmer would with an
Mhm.
instrument.
Yep. And it makes it very predictable output. Like when I do things just like this, these are the results that I get, and you can redo it very easily, time and time again.
Yeah, and I do feel like it changed the landscape of music when it came into the picture. we really started to see music evolve. You couldn't have Pink Floyd
Yeah.
without the synthesizer.
Yeah. And I mean, even in the early days, the prepared piano, I mean, they had all kinds of things that, made them, whether it was experimental or cutting edge or whatever you want to call it, but something, let's say outside the box, right? I mean, they definitely had some stuff going on there where synthesizers were definitely key.
Yeah, and what I found interesting as I was hunting for this, its history actually goes further back than I thought. Like, we're gonna see in our we'll go to the IT cave and we'll
Hey,
see what we're talking about here.
there it is.
And what we're gonna start with is the history of synthesizers, because I really was curious as to where did it begin. And Andy Whitmore
Mhm.
did a fantastic job. Again, I didn't have shortages of videos that I wanted to go to for this,
Mhm.
but this one has a nice complete history to it, and it's not an hour long. So
Yeah.
um, he's going to cover the complete history of synthesizers, how synths change music forever. Completely
Mhm.
agree there.
Nice.
And then we're going to take a quick look at the differences between a synthesizer and a sampler. And,
Mhm.
I think a lot of people um, sometimes associate the two together,
Mhm.
but there are differences. There is a form of synthesis that incorporates sampling along with waveform editing to do things, but synthesis and sampling are two different beasts.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
I mean, one is kind of more copycat and one is kind of more from the ground up reproduction, right?
yeah, yeah, and Studio Pro's Freshy channel,
Mhm.
awesome. Again, I had a couple of different videos that I could have chose here.
Oh, yeah.
This one did the best job of explaining those differences.
Mhm. Nice.
And then once we know those differences, we've got to learn the different types of synthesis that are available.
Mhm.
And for the most part, there's four that are important to understand. Sounds good. Love the name of the channel.
Nice.
Does a good job of explaining this.
Mhm. I like it.
Yeah, every type of synthesizer explained. There's a few that are could be mentioned, but the the newer types of synthesis still rely on these base types of synthesis.
Sure. Like subcategories almost.
Yep, and then we're gonna have a twofer here with Dr. Mix.
Mhm. Nice.
Love that channel. We've been there for some of our mixing
Mhm.
videos and discussions,
Yep.
and he does an awesome job of covering the 7 greatest moments in synthesizer history.
Nice.
And I had to get this one in here because one of them, number 6, is to me the reason why I got into synthesizer.
Mhm.
The last couple of weeks we'd been looking at some different videos, and they'd mentioned Wendy Carlos.
Mhm.
And she created an album called Switched on Bach using the Moog synthesizer,
Sure.
which when I was a kid, when I heard Bach on synthesizer, I was like, I want to
Mhm.
do this.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just one of 7 critical moments where synthesizers really changed the music world.
Mhm. Nice.
And then also from Dr. Mix, he's the synthesizer guru, and
Mhm.
he's going to show us the top 7 synthesizers that change music forever. And I had to include this one along with his other one because
Yep.
he mentions a couple of them that I had and
Mhm.
a couple of them that I wanted.
Yep. I was gonna ask you how many were each of those categories.
Well, there's 2 that I had, and
Mhm.
I would
Nice.
have taken any one of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then to finish things off tonight, what better way than Sanjay C, awesome reviewer on YouTube. We've brought him. We brought his videos in on a couple of nights to show different gear because his reviews are fantastic. And he goes to the Synth Expo in Brooklyn this
Nice.
year to show some of the toys, the new toys that he found at the expo.
Mhm.
And it's a perfect way if you can't go to that expo yourself, like me.
Mhm.
His eyes and ears on this gear is phenomenal. And
And
there's some really cool stuff that he looks at.
and knowing what questions to ask and what stuff to point out, that's also important for sure.
Yeah. You couldn't ask for a better person to go through a synth expo like this, and you'll see the companies that he goes and checks out. These are some of the biggest names in synthesizers going back decades.
Nice. A nice solid group of stuff to go through today. Good
Yeah.
channels.
Yeah, I get to go to the synth expo and I don't have to get on a plane.
That's a bonus. I mean, for me, it's not that far to Brooklyn, but still.
So before we get started on the what is a synthesizer, we're going to look at the history of it. It's actually got a longer history than I thought, and um, it was interesting to see like how the early instruments that led to synthesizers, when electricity kicked in, because
Mhm.
that's typically what I thought, like electricity, kind of a necessity when it comes to a synthesizer.
Mhm.
But it turns out that, we were kind of gearing up for this kind of instrument before.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact that a lot of, synth playing is played keyboard style. I mean, all of piano stuff does lead up to it as well. It was just an extension of using the keyboard from a piano to make other sounds.
Yeah, and we do associate synthesizers with keyboards, but as we're going to see tonight,
They're not all keyboards.
there's a lot of knobs and a lot of
Mhm.
dials that go on behind that keyboard. And uh, he's going to show like how all of this evolved. Andy Whitmore over on YouTube, like I said, of all the different documentary type history on synthesizers videos that I looked at, this one does a bang up job of covering it all, up until the modern synthesizers that we're starting to see.
Mhm. All right. Let's
A-
dive right in.
And it's a freshy channel for me that I will be back to because you just see from these thumbnails how like he's covering the kind of gear that I am so into.
All right.
But here we're going to get the complete history of synthesizers and how synths change music forever.
Mhm.
The history of synthesizers. Before I go ahead with this video, I must explain that I fell off my scooter in Spain and I've hurt myself pretty badly. The synthesizer or synth is an electronic instrument that generates audio signals. These signals are shaped into sounds using subtractive, additive or frequency modulation FM synthesis. These synths then often have filters that cut or boost frequencies, envelopes that control the stop and start of the sound, and an LFO which controls modulation of either the pitch or the tone. They're controlled by keyboards, sequencers or external controllers like MIDI. The origins of the electronic sound. Synthesis started in the 19th century when Elisha Gray realised that electromagnetic circuits could generate and control sound. In 1901, Thaddeus Cahill invented the telharmonium. It was a 7-ton monster. It generated sounds and it sent them down telephone lines. This was before speakers and amps had been invented. You couldn't really hear the thing in the room. They would have a big horn that would amplify the sound, but people would literally dial in and listen to the guy playing the instrument.
absolute weird stuff. It had 88 cogs that were enormous, and they spun around in front of a magnet which had copper wire on it. This generated the sound. So 88 cogs made an 88 note polyphonic instrument, and then a further 88 cogs would make the sound more harmonic, and this was essentially an additive synthesis. We'll dive deeper into that in another video. This was a crude system, but it planted the seed. Electricity can make music. In the 20th century, we had powered vacuum tubes, and then this introduced the Hammond organ and the Erie Ondas Martinet. By the 1950s, the first synth-like instruments emerged. The RCA Mark II used hundreds of vacuum tubes and punch cards to produce sound. It was a room-sized monster and hard to use, but it laid the groundwork. You couldn't play it live, but it did have a sequencer. The Moog Revolution. In New York, Robert Moog was born. He was born to an engineer dad and a school teacher mum, a perfect combination. At 19 years old, he invented his company, R.A. Moog Co., and he was building theremins and selling them. In 1963, he met composer Herb Deutsch, and together they envisioned a more practical real-time synthesizer, the Moog modular system. It used voltage control to shape the sound dynamically, oscillators created rich waveforms, then filters and envelopes sculptured the sound. This was subtractive synthesis in action. Start with a harmonically rich tone and carve it into something usable. The Moog modular was revolutionary but also massive and expensive. East versus West, Moog and Buchla. On the West Coast, Don Buchla was crafting something very different. He ditched the keyboard entirely, aiming to escape traditional Western scales. His Buchla 100 also used voltage control, but instead of filtering, it focused on wave shaping. Buchla's approach was more abstract, more experimental, turning the synthesizer into a completely new instrument. First synth records. In 1967, Morton Subotnick released Silver Apples of the Moon, composed entirely on the Buchla 100. It was radical, the first commissioned electronic album. Then in 1968, Wendy Carlos changed everything with Switched on Bach. Recorded on a Moog modular, she layered performances one note at a time onto tape. It went platinum, showing that synths weren't just noise machines. They could make music, real music. It got the attention of the Beatles and brought synths to the mainstream audience. The Mini Moog Model D. In 1969, engineer Bill Hemsath began prototyping a compact version of the Moog modular. Synth users kept patching their machines in similar ways. Hemsath noticed this, so he hardwired the basic signal, oscillator to filter to amplifier. By 1970, Moog released the Mini Moog Model D, a smaller, more affordable synth with a built-in keyboard. No patch cables, just knobs. It was an instant hit and became the blueprint for thousands of synths and soft synths that followed. It's still the benchmark. Now this used 3 oscillators. Luckily we've still got them tuned. Square wave. Meanwhile, in Putney, EMS invented the VCS-3. It was a little bit more primitive than the Moog. This quirky machine didn't even have a keyboard at first, pitching was unstable, and you had to manually tune it so the notes made sense to the Western ear. It featured attack and decay controls but no sustain or release, so sculpting the sound wasn't as flexible as the American synths like the Moog or the ARP. However, the EMS had a genius trick up its sleeve. A pin matrix system that let you patch anything to anything. No spaghetti of patch cables. Despite its limitations, the sound quality and creative freedom was undeniable. It became a cult favourite among experimental and art rock bands, which included Pink Floyd, Hawkwind, and artists like Brian Eno and David Bowie. The EMS VCS-3 and the Synth 100 even made it into sound design for Blake 7, Doctor Who, and early sci-fi. Here's a demo of the Synth AKS, which was brought out in 1972 and had the same inside as the VCS-3. Polyphonic breakthrough. Early synths were monophonic, but artists wanted more, so Dave Smith came along and he invented the polyphonic synth, the Prophet 5. He used microprocessors so that the sounds could be stored. This was a revelation, it had never been done before, and once you recalled a preset, if you moved a knob, it became live. Smith didn't think he'd beat the big names to it. He brought out a Rev 1, 2 and 3, increasing and getting more reliable, although some people think that the Rev 1s and 2s sounded better than the Rev 3s. ARP and Oberheim followed suit, the OBX to Jupiter 4 entered the scene. Meanwhile, Yamaha had taken a different route. The CS80 offered rich expressive analog sound with polyphonic aftertouch and a ribbon controller, but no patch memory. You had to manually set every slider. Its envelopes weren't standard ADSR either. They used initial, attack and decay stages, making precise programming less predictable than the Prophet 5. Digital takes over, FM synthesis and digital sampling. In 1983, Yamaha dropped the DX7, introducing the world to FM synthesis. No filters here, just digital sine waves modulating each other to create bell-like metallic tones. It was the sound of the 80s, rubbery bass lines, electric pianos, synth bells, everyone had one. The Yamaha TX816 is 8 DX7s in a box. Next came sampling. The Fairlight CMI and Synclavier were early giants. Huge, expensive, powerful. The Kurzweil K250 finally nailed a realistic piano at an affordable price. Then came the Ensoniq Mirage, EMU emulator, and Akai's S series, including the S900 and legendary S1000.
Load, yes.
Roger Lynn's Akai MPC changed music forever. Artists like Pete Rock and John Diller used its chop and flip samples, laying the foundation of modern hip-hop and beat culture. Software and analog revival. In 1997, Propellerhead's rebirth and Sear Systems reality brought synths into the computer. By 1999, Cubase introduced VST plugins, and suddenly entire studios lived on your desktop. Software instruments exploded in the 2000s with Reason. Now we have Contact, Massive, Omnisphere, Arteria V Collection, with emulations of the CS80, Minimoog, Jupiter Ray and JD800, plus loads of others. But analog wouldn't die. In the 90s and 2000s, vintage synths started gaining value. Moog, Korg and Dave Smith Instruments released new analog gear, smaller, cheaper but still hands-on. Modular came back too, thanks to the Euro Rack. This wave of innovation paved the way for soft synths as we know today. Impact. At first, synthesizers were seen as experimental or even threatening, but Switched On Bart changed that. Still, classical purists rejected them. Over time though, synths infiltrated every genre: rock, pop, hip-hop, EDM. Today, the synthesizer stands beside the electric guitar as the most transformative musical instrument ever created. According to Analog Days, it's the only innovation that can stand alongside the electric guitar as a great new instrument of the age of electricity. As Fact magazine put it in 2016, the synthesizer is as important and as ubiquitous in modern music today as the human voice. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe. And if you're interested, there's the top 11 most expensive synths and my studio tour videos to check out. Thank you.
Nice.
Just the facts, Ange. Just the facts.
That's all you need. Just the facts.
Oh, I got to check out his expensive instruments video.
You like that 8 DX7s in a box? I like that.
Well, some of the ones he showed there during the 80s, I would go play them in the music store. And to get my hands on one of those would have been, that was the dream. That Akai, the first one that he showed, the early Akai. Oh, I wanted my parents to get me that, but way out of their budget.
Different instruments, or different, just having a certain instrument and having a certain sound come from it really does inspire certain songs. Like I see people, they get a new guitar and this song just comes out of them that never would have come out of them because that guitar brought it out of them. Same thing with keyboards. Like you get a new keyboard, you're playing around with the sound and you find a particular sound, a little riff, and all of a sudden a whole song just comes out of that.
Yeah, and that was the fun thing about the early synths that I played with. When he mentioned the synths that started to have presets, because before they had presets, you pretty much had to roll your sound every time you sat down at it. And when you could actually start to store some of your presets, that was a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. And see, that's the thing is I had that, the CZ1 way back then and was doing all the adjusting of the sounds and all. I was doing keyboard a bit back then, but then I really just kind of didn't do keyboard at all for the next, 30 years. I kind of switched over and just did a little bit of guitar here and there. And then, started doing bass, 20 years ago or whatever it was. But it was more, maybe it's 25 years ago. But the The main thing was just that I didn't really focus on it, and I'd learned enough about it though to be able to jump back in and appreciate it still, and like now I'm starting to, you see me play occasionally on piano, and I start to like certain things come back over time, and it's just, it's a slow thing, but it'll come back more as time goes on.
Yeah, what I loved with that CZ, and I actually did program it a little bit. It felt like you were playing with an analog synth
Yeah,
in the
very
digital
much.
world. It
Hmm.
had the same approach that you would have had with the analog synthesizers, but it had the luxury of being digital, being able to store the patches and
Hmm.
um, really experiment with the oscillators.
Yeah. And people would just come up and look at it and just see all these controls and see you adjust this or adjust that. And they're like, how do you know what all this stuff does? And it's like, well, I mean, it just kind of makes sense when once you just kind of play with things and start figuring what out, this does this and this does that. I like it when
One
that's a little more this way. And
one of part of the fun of it, even if you didn't necessarily know
mhm,
what the things were doing, when you turn the knobs and you heard the effect, it was kind of like playing with Play-Doh and
mhm,
just seeing what you could shape
yep.
just from a sound wave.
And again, even if you couldn't get that exact same sound the next time, because it is difficult to kind of tune things in, but at that point you could start saving sounds. But again, you're getting a different sound and it's going to inspire a different kind of song to come out of you.
Yeah, yeah. Between the CZ and the DX7,
Yeah,
which
I knew you were going to love that
and
one.
it's going to get mentioned.
Mhm,
It is one of the most legendary of the early synths for me.
mhm.
Uh, One of the most desired synths of the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah, for sure. And that thing, I mean, we used to see it everywhere back then, like you said.
Yeah, I might actually have one by the end of the year. My buddy
Nice.
Lou, he's got one, and before he moves, he's kind of clearing out the house, and
Mhm.
that may end up on my synth rack.
Nice. And it would have a happy home there, I'm sure.
It's one of the retro synths that I would actually play.
Mhm,
He had mentioned with the advent of VSTs, one cool thing about now that we can load a lot of these synths in a plugin,
mhm,
it has brought back the appreciation for the analog synths and the retro synths. Um, they are making a very big comeback because of their accessibility.
mhm. Now you would not want the weighted keys for playing synth, right? You would
Uh,
want the light plastic keys for most of what you'd be doing, right?
yeah, unless I was doing like the DX7s, like electric piano type of
Right.
sounds,
Where you need to be
weighted.
able to get that weight coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, the weight can be useful there, but with the or some of those squishy patches, because like sometimes with the weighted keys and velocity,
Mhm,
you can make them really do some cool things if you've got the weighted keys and good velocity.
mhm. Yep. And good technique.
Yep. I'm
It's important.
jealous of that room Andy is in, man.
Lots of good stuff in there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, he's got a hell of a setup around him. I mean, those are some of the legends.
Hmm. Gotta love it.
Yeah, yeah. Rare synth demos and deep dive gear history. Awesome new channel for us.
Hmm.
Yep.
Right up the alley. Yep. Yep.
At Andy Whitmore. Thank you for that look back.
Hmm.
So now that we know like where synths came from, the sampler, which he mentioned in the history because sampling was an important part in synth history,
Hmm.
but samplers and synthesizers aren't the same thing. So I really did want to include at least a video explaining the approach with samplers versus the approach with synthesizers and how they differentiate there.
Hmm. That is the
And
question.
yeah, and this is another freshy channel for us. And I don't know how we didn't come across this one before. At Studio Pros, uh, he's covering this difference. I looked at a couple of different videos trying to explain the differences, and this one stood out. Great explanation. And looking at the videos he's got here, he's got pro tips on all sorts of stuff. So we may be visiting this channel on a couple of topics we have in the future.
All right.
Yep,
Always like channels that we're going to be back to.
Yep, at Studio Pros is going to show us samplers versus synths.
Face off.
Hello and welcome to Pro Tips with Studio Pros. Today we're going to tackle the differences between samples and synthesizers. So what are samples and synthesizers? Well, in a modern context, we sometimes don't have the money, the time, or the facilities to go and record every single instrument that we need in our session. So we'll use something called a virtual instrument. Today we're going to talk about two different kinds of virtual instruments. We have samples and synthesizers. So a sampler will use real recordings of audio and then play them back as you request it, whereas synthesizers are actually generating the sound from scratch usually. So if that's still confusing, you can think about it this way. A sampler like Contact by Native Instruments will take actual recordings of things, for example, a recording of a piano playing middle C, and when you play middle C on your MIDI keyboard, it'll recall that audio file that was recorded anywhere in the world and play it back in your session. What they do to make this sound realistic, let's say a company like Native Instruments, for example, is they'll take a really great piano in a really great room, mic'd up really well, and they'll record every single note on the piano at different intensities and assign each one of those recordings to the appropriate note and velocity on a MIDI keyboard. For stuff like piano, this is amazing because for the most part, once you hit the note on a piano, it just rings out. So all they need to do is play these notes out, record however long they're going to record, and then as you're playing it, they just trigger each one of these notes. It ends up sounding pretty realistic, almost unrecognizable from the real thing. Where this can get kind of tricky are things that don't have a steady decay in their audio. So piano or drums or all kinds of sound effects are really well suited for a sampler. Where this starts to get tricky is things like strings or anything where the sound is sustained and has a legato feature to it. Takes some pretty clever engineering to make it sound real without recording every single possible combination of notes. Because of this massive library of sounds that is required to make samplers sound great, sometimes this comes at a compromise with your hard drive space and also your hard drive speed because the samples need to be able to be recalled in a timely manner. A synthesizer, instead of using actual recordings of instruments or sounds, will make the sounds from scratch. And that's why there's such a variety of synths available because there are a lot of different ways to create sound from scratch. Sometimes synthesizers are used to try to mimic real sounds. And just like a sampler, this is easier with things that have a steady decay and a very precise attack, but becomes more complicated when you have sounds that need to blend into one another. If you're familiar with that 80s sound, 80s music uses synthesizers a lot, not only in the actual keyboard synthesizers, but also stuff that's mimicking drum parts, even vocal stuff. So that can be kind of a guideline for you. Since synthesizers are creating the sound on the spot, sometimes it can be a little more heavy on your processor on your computer, but usually much, much lighter as far as how much hard drive space they take up. Some of them only take up a couple of megabytes. So let me show you a few examples of instruments played through samplers or through synthesizers. First one I'm going to show you here is a cello sample from LA Scoring Strings. I played them on keyboard earlier, and now we'll be able to listen. So that's the sample version of this. Let's hear what this synthesized version of a cello would sound like through a preset in Apple's Sculpture. So no one's probably going to believe that that's a real cello, but you could see how maybe that would be more appropriate in a certain style of music than having the actual cello sample. For drums, things get really interesting because most of the drums you hear on the radio these days are not acoustic drums, they're synthesized drums. So here's a drum beat done with acoustic samples. Now here's the same exact beat done with a synthesized drum. You can tell they're two very different approaches when tackling how to make drums work in a song. With bass, it's similar. You can have a bass sample like this. Now that sounds like an actual bass player might have played that. If you're a real bass player, you probably would hear that sounds a little funny, but to the average listener, it sounds good enough. That same part done with a synthesized bass isn't really trying to mimic a real bass. It just wants to give you that low frequency floor that you want in a song. So there you have the difference between a string sound, the difference in the drum sound, and the difference in a bass sound when it comes to sampled versus synthesized. One more time to clear it all up, a sampler will take actual recordings of instruments that someone took somewhere in some studio and assign them to notes on your MIDI keyboard, whereas a synthesizer is generating the notes from scratch. So someone had to figure out what part of a sound makes what sound like what. I'll let the geniuses figure out how to make it sound good. I just want it to sound good when I play it on the keyboard. So hopefully that'll make sense to you the next time you're trying to pull up a virtual instrument in your session. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And if there's anything you'd like for us to tackle, also let us know below. This has been Pro Tips with Studio Pros. Make music and have fun.
That's a groovy outro song.
I like it. And I like
And
the bass comparisons too.
Yeah, and I like it to sound good when I play it too.
Definitely.
His mentioning of like which sounds work well with samplers versus the ones that strings was always like a bitch in the early days of samplers to get quality string sounds in the early samplers. I actually liked my synth strings better than my sample strings until the 2000s.
And the other one I was going to say was brass, was synth brass, because
Yeah.
that's also it's tricky, but if you can do the certain things that you need to make it sound authentic, it can actually sound pretty good.
Yeah, and mentioning what you had to go through to get like good piano samples in the early days and sampling each note and
At how
different.
many velocities?
Yeah, and that was a very real thing, and because storage back then was really hard to get the amount of storage, it was tricky to get high quality samples until the early 2000s. It took a technology, gigasampler. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but in the very early 2000s, they came out with a method of streaming the sample, which allowed you to have like these monstrously huge piano samples and load them to play into the sampler without having the kind of RAM and resources that you would need. That was the beginning of getting really high quality samples.
Yeah. And again, it's a process, and the technology does have to get to a certain level. Like they have the ideas first when the technology's not quite there yet. So they, have certain prototypes that come around and they're trying to get things together. And then as things all come together, you start to get these things where it all just starts to come together at the right time.
Yeah, and it took time for great sample libraries to actually become available.
Mhm.
More than a decade of like people doing the sampling and improving on it and getting to that point where some of these natural instruments that we want to hear in our samplers finally starting to sound like the instruments that we want them to.
Yep. And I mean, you can make your own, libraries now if you wanted to. You can. It wouldn't be difficult. It does take all the space, like you said, and it does take the time and the effort to actually make all those samples. But you could, automate some of the process in terms of how you're doing things. But you could get if you have an instrument that you really, really like the sound of, and you wanted to get it sampled, you could do that.
Yeah, yeah. My first sampler was in the 90s. It was the Ensoniq Mirage, which
Hmm.
at the time was one of the first samplers to actually be cost efficient. And you could store your samples on a floppy disk. Not that like you could have these big samples, but the fact that like you could sample and store it on a piece of media back then
Hmm.
was huge.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you couldn't get a very long sample. I thought I was going to take like my other keyboards and I'm like, oh, I'm going to sample all my keyboard patches into this sampler. The results were not what I wanted.
Yeah. Actually, when I had the CZ1, the really big Casio keyboard, I also had the tiniest one, the Casio SK1, which was one that had the little sampler in it,
Yeah.
where you could like, hello, and then you play it back, hello, hello, hello. You could just, put little samples in there. The thing that I like to do is if you could just like put the shortest sound you possibly could, like you snap your fingers or you like
Yeah.
tap it, and then it would make an actual. It was kind of like doing a synthesizer where you're just starting with a very pure sound where it's just a certain number of cycles, and then from there, depending how high on the keyboard you're hitting it, you're getting the note you're looking for.
Yeah, and the short sounds, those were the ones that translated the best.
Hmm.
Drums, piano,
Hmm.
xylophone.
Yep. Short attack, steel drums.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we actually had great samples of those going back to the 90s.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. At Studio Pros, great explanation of the differences there and where one benefits versus the other. With
Hmm.
synthesizers, you're not dealing with lots of memory usage. You're you're able to get sounds that don't require a lot of resources. Nowadays, it's not as big of a deal because
Hmm.
we've caught up with RAM and computer resources, but back then, I mean, it was the only way to actually make sounds and not pay tens of thousands of dollars for the
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, at Studio Pros. So now we're going to look at the different types of synthesis that synthesizers utilize to produce sounds. And um, the different approaches, it's good to understand how these different types of synthesis work. Uh, if you are going to go buy a synthesizer now, or if you're going to go download like some of the synthesizer plugins that are
Hmm.
out there, and you're looking for certain kind of synthesizer sounds, you want that Pink Floyd kind of sound. You'll I'll typically go to Google and like find out what the original musicians used for their synthesizers
Hmm.
to, to produce that sound. And you don't necessarily have to get the same synth that they use, but you
Right.
do want to get the same type of synthesis that they use to approach it because the different types produce different types of patches.
Very different types of patches, like he demonstrated in that last one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one's coming from Sounds Good at
Right.
Sounds Good Channel. I love the name.
Excellent.
It's Sarah. She's a musician and she makes educational videos about music on YouTube. And
Mhm.
we love educational videos. Looking at what she's got here, yes, She is a synth fan too.
Nice.
Oh, and she's also looking at some of the synths that first influenced me. PCM,
Mhm.
my Rolands back in the 90s, that was a big part of their uh, getting synths that sounded like realistic instruments. Like they actually could make a piano sound out of a synth.
Right. Very realistic.
Yep. So here she's going to show us every type of synthesizer explained. And again, of all the different videos that I looked at for this kind of explanation, this one really stood out. It's complete. It's concise. You can see in the chapters here, every one of these types of synthesis she's talking about. It's good to understand how the approach they take to create the sounds that they do.
Mhm. And I love when we break it down to the physics level of how the sounds are put together.
Yeah, well, there is some physics to some of this.
Oh, yeah.
Additive synthesis. Sound waves are added together to make a new and more exciting sound. In my opinion, there are two distinct applications of this method. The first is so simple that the earliest examples of it come from before synthesizers were even invented. The pipe organ pumps pressurized air through hundreds of pipes separated into groups based on their size and material. The player controls which groups are active using something called stops. The second application is based on a very interesting idea that will continue to show up throughout this video. All of the sounds on our dear planet can be broken down into constituent sine waves. We can see the sine waves that make up the sound of me talking on this image here called a spectrogram. So, understanding that all sounds are made up of a bunch of sine waves, it's intuitive that it could be interesting to manipulate those sine waves as a synthesis method. So intuitive, in fact, that I even designed an additive oscillator on a Max MSP synth that I made as a teenager. Nerd. Subtractive synthesis. A rich waveform is subtracted from using a filter. Subtractive synths are set up like this. We start with a sound source, also known as an oscillator. And there are about 4 or 5 sounds or waveforms that these oscillators make. Saw, square, triangle, and sine. This oscillator then runs into a filter. Common filter designs include the low pass, high pass, and the band pass. Finally, this signal runs from the filter into an amplifier, which controls the intensity or volume of the sound. So our signal path is this. We have an oscillator going into a filter, going into an amplifier. From there, we can automate parameters of the sound using control signal generators. We could use an envelope generator to modulate the overall intensity of the signal by connecting it to the amplifier. We could also connect a low frequency oscillator to a filter for a fun wah 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 kind of sound. The very first attempts at subtractive synthesis began with the military.
The machine uses only 2 sounds produced electrically. One of these represents the breath. The other, the vibration of the vocal cords.
The voder was a speech synthesizer invented in 1937.
Who saw you? She saw me. Whom did she see? She saw me.
For a detailed breakdown of subtractive synthesis, check out this video. I am looking for like 3 or 4 people. Maybe one of them is you. The people I'm looking for make music on the computer and want to get better at it faster. Maybe you want to get really good at turning a single idea into a finished song. Maybe you want to get good at making engaging arrangements. Maybe you want to get really good at sound design or synthesizer programming. Whatever it is, I think you should check out Sarah School. At Sarah School, I teach weekly one-on-one sliding scale music production and composition lessons over Zoom. Basically, the way it works is we have a meeting, you show me something that you've been working on lately, and we use that as a jumping off point to work on the skills that you want to develop. That way, the information that you get is specifically tailored to your music. I've been doing Sarah School for about 4 years now, and it's really working for some people.
Sarah School has helped me crystallize years of scattered progress into real understanding. It has fundamentally changed how I think about composition.
If you think that might be you, you can sign up for a lesson or a free 30-minute consultation at sarah-feldman.com/Sarah School. And now, back to the video. FM synthesis. We modulate the frequency of one wave with another to create a new and complex sound. FM synthesis was discovered as a sort of happy accident by John Chowning when he was working with a big computer at Stanford in 1967. Chowning was not clowning. He wanted to make a basic sound with a bit of vibrato. So he started by programming one sine wave oscillating within the frequency range of human hearing. Then he modulated its frequency with a much slower sub-audio rate sine wave. He then became curious about what would happen if he increased the rate of the slower sub-audio rate sine wave into the audio range. Notice that when the slower wave reaches audio rate, we no longer hear the pitch of the faster wave changing, but we hear its timbre changing. This was an incredible discovery, especially in light of the fact that computer resources were very scarce and they would be for a long time. Modulating the frequency of one sine wave with another can create a fuck ton of partials. Before FM, the only way to create a signal of this complexity would be to have a dedicated oscillator for each of those partials. And with the computation power available at the time, that would have been completely out of the question. FM synthesis is simple, musical, and efficient, all qualities necessary for a synthesis method to become extremely popular. If you want a video on the nitty-gritty of FM synthesis, including things like sidebands, comment below. Wavetable synthesis. A small sample of audio is read back very quickly to create a complex waveform. You can hear wavetable synthesis in almost every single piece of electronic music being made today, and it is the core technology behind the most powerful and popular synths. Wavetable is only possible using digital audio technology and can really only be conceived of in a world where digital audio technology exists. In the 60s and 70s, before wavetable, we used analog circuits as our sound source for our synthesizers. And those circuits were really good at making a few waveforms, like triangle, square, and saw. But now, with digital synthesizers, we use a digital representation of a sound as our sound source, which means that we can effectively draw any type of waveform we imagine.
What's more
is we can draw an even longer waveform and then only read back a portion of that waveform, but then move the portion that we're reading back to change the sound over time.
That's amazing.
For the full story of wavetable synthesis, starting at the invention of tube oscillators in the 1800s, you can check out this video, Granular Synthesis, a catch-all term for any type of sound processing that involves tiny little chunks. Now, crucially, these chunks must be within the range of 1 to 100 milliseconds. You might be thinking, well, arguably, a partial, or like a sine wave, an additive synthesizer, could be a chunk. But no, the chunk has to be in the sub-audio rate frequency range. We're talking about a chunk that you can hear as an individual little tiny sound. Most people don't know this, so you can impress your friends with your secret knowledge. But time stretching is actually a form of granular synthesis. For now, let's start with a more typical example. We have control of the size of the grain, the density of the grains, and the shape of the grains. The idea is to make a distribution of many grains, some of which may overlap, to create a complex texture. If the inspiration for additive, subtractive, wavetable, or FM synthesis is vaguely to recreate the sound of an acoustic instrument, we can think of granular synthesis as being inspired by sounds like walking on a gravel road, or the sound of thousands of little water droplets hitting the surface of a lake when there's a wave. In order to reach that level of complexity, we can add randomness to the signal so that it can change over time. Oh yeah, and now that you understand how granular synthesis works, maybe we can try to understand time stretching. Can you guess how it works? If you guessed breaking down a sound into a bunch of chunks and then refitting them back together at the desired new length of sound, then you were correct. Physical modeling synthesis. Mathematical model of an acoustic instrument is used as a sound source. The basic setup works exactly like an acoustic instrument. The exciter, say a guitar pick, sets a resonator, say a guitar string, into motion. In physical modeling synthesis, you have a mathematical model that represents the exciter and a mathematical model that represents the resonator. It's fun because you can create instruments that would never exist in real life, like a tube that gets larger when you hit it. To synthesize, we change the parameters until it sounds cool. Modular synthesis, any type of synthesis where the user creates the signal path. There are a variety of signal generating and processing components, aka modules, connected together using patch cables. The very first analog synths in the 1960s were modular. And now, in newfangled contemporary modern day times, a new, much smaller format of modular synth called Eurorack has gained extreme popularity amongst a subset of nerds. The modules in the original modular synths typically had one very straightforward function, like a single oscillator, filter, or envelope generator. These synths were sold as a complete system and were not cross-compatible. Now, Eurorack is a standard format that all kinds of manufacturers make modules for. Given the increased competition, companies tend to make advanced modules with many integrated functions. Compare this Moog oscillator that had 4 wave shapes to a mutable instruments braids with physical models, wavetables, digital and analog waveforms, 2 timbre controls, and built-in frequency modulation. Other. Sample. Synthesizers that use samples as their source material. Is this even a type of synthesizer? Probably. Romplers. Sample-based synths that only use samples installed by the manufacturer. Vector synthesis. Crossfading between multiple sound sources. The idea here is that a lot of acoustic sounds have a little burst of noise right at the beginning of the sound. Subtractive synthesis and most other forms of synthesis don't do this. So if we crossfade through a couple of different sounds, then we can create some really interesting complexity and include those funky little transients that our brains love so much. Phase modulation, very similar to FM, but working on principles of phase instead of frequency. Speech synthesis.
This one is self-explanatory.
FFT synthesis. Basically, a sound is analyzed for its constituent sine waves, and then those sine waves can be individually manipulated to create a new sound. Resynthesis analyzes sounds and reconstructs it.
So many different synths.
Oh, and her synth brain is massive. There's a few in there I'd kind of heard of, but never got familiar with. And then there's a few that I did play. The vector synthesis,
Yep.
dabbled in it a little bit. Additive and subtractive. That's the one that like you kind of have to learn first, but these evolutions, the phase modulation. I wonder if that's also the one that the CZ played, because that was called phase distortion, I
Mhm.
think, synthesis.
Yeah, I love the fact that just changing the pitch up and down. And again, this is in the earlier days, so this was the first one that I remember where you could actually just get a sample real time into the thing and just go.
And I thought it was funny when she mentioned, sampler and adding synthesis on top of it. And is this a synthesis? And, her kind of response there. it- I do have my Halion sampler has all these different types of synthesis in it now. They actually added FM finally
Yeah.
in the last version, and it does have that ability to mix sample with synth approaches to take samplers a sample into a whole different direction. Um, Man, I wish I had this kind of course or school and knowledge
Mhm.
back in the 80s when I was first getting into it.
Yeah. And when it comes to one of those, where you're manually patching things with the wires in the front there, I mean, it looks like a whole spaghetti mess, but really when you're starting out, it's clean. You're starting with one thing and you're just kind of building from there, and it all becomes, it grows into something like what you see at the end there,
Yeah,
bit by bit.
some people can actually do that whole like patch bang kind of like it. To me, it looks like, those old school operators that used
Yep.
to patch calls.
Yeah.
Like,
And it
okay,
looks like
let
some
me
of the
let me route your call over here.
it looks like some of the nightmare server rooms we've worked in too, where you look in the server closet and you're just like, no, man, seriously. It's like you put it together like that. Come on.
Well, and I can't believe that voice synthesis goes back to 37. The
Mhm.
military, leave it to the military to come up with the synthesis.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and again, what was the use case scenario at the time, right? Like they're trying to, whether it was to be able to send messages that sound like voice without having to actually send voice, or whatever the premise was to get them started on the project. But they will see those things through.
I think some visionary back then said, this will be a speak and spell one day, and
Sure.
kids will learn how to spell with it.
Hmm. Could have even been somebody thinking about translation, like saying, how do we make it so that we can translate in from one language to another or whatever. There's a number of different ways you could use that.
Yeah, that's actually a really slick way to create that Star Trek Universal Translator.
There you go.
Oh, I loved it. I was a nerd too, Sarah.
Oh
I
yeah.
did
Oh yeah.
I did those.
Nerds are us.
And I wish that I had spent more time on the synthesizer side of things going into the 90s, and when I went into the Roland keyboards and started doing the PCM wave table approach. I started buying my keyboards to get natural sounds, and I really didn't appreciate the beauty of the synthesizer sounds. And now I've kind of gone full circle. I want to take a different approach with my music now, and going back to this kind of synthesizer sounds is going to give me a way to write something different.
Absolutely. And something like we were talking about the synth strings and the synth brass, right? So the brass, like that's not a bad brass sound, but again, it comes down to how you like the articulation, and it comes down to how the notes, how they bend. It doesn't sound like it should when you're doing a bend on on brass, but
Well,
that's
it's
something that
per
you have to
it's
work it in there.
it's perfect for the final countdown.
There you go.
or Axel F.
Yeah, there you go. Either one works.
Yeah.
I don't even remember that one. Probably an E.
Well, I'm gonna have to check out her school that she's got there. I love the fact that there are now schools for synthesis enthusiasts. We live in an awesome time.
Absolutely. The resources are out there, man.
Yeah.
All of
Awesome information, Sarah. Really glad we found this channel and we covered synth tonight.
Yes, indeed.
Great addition.
Good stuff.
Yep, at Sounds Good channel. And now we're going to have a double header here from this channel. Dr. Mix, we've been here for a couple of different topics, and go figure, not only does he give great mixing and tips and that, he is the synth guru. And these two cover parts of the history that I am stoked to go through, because this one, the 7 greatest moments in synthesizer history, I really wanted to get this one in here because number 6, Wendy Carlos, which we've heard, some mention of, for me was groundbreaking as a kid. Bought my first synth. I wanted to be a guitarist at first, but that didn't work. And with the keyboard, when I heard Switched on Bach, my love for classical music and my love for synthesizer just like all of a sudden collided, and I spent the next 40 years like playing with that.
Nice. It's good inspiration.
Yeah, and this one's coming from at Dr. Mix over on YouTube. Awesome channel for mixing advice, synth advice. He is the synth guru, and he does talk music production, lots of tutorials. Great channel for all of this.
Oh, yeah. And we will be back again for sure.
And he will be taking us back to these greatest moments in synthesizer history.
Hi, and welcome to Dr. Mix 7 Greatest Moments in Synthesizer History. Kindly sponsored by UVI, the makers of Synth Anthology 4, a collection of 200 incredible hardware synthesizers in one plugin. UVI's Synth Anthology 4 delivers the authentic sound of 200 synthesizers, from vintage to modern hardware of all decades, in a feature-packed software instrument. And version 4 has a new engine, more synths, more presets, more arpeggiation, and more effects. I know, it's really good. Check the link in the description. And now, number 7, The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. This is a visionary movie where Earth gets visited by aliens. Hollywood composer Bernard Herrmann decided to use the theremin for the soundtrack to evoke suspense in a futuristic way. This early synthesizer had already been used in movies before, but this film is the moment in cinematography that really captured everyone's imagination and forever linked space with the sound of the synthesizer. Bit Jeremy Clarkson on that one. Yeah. I have a theremin and I'm gonna play it for you right now! This is the theremin and it has 2 antennas which are sensitive to proximity and touch. Let me demonstrate. This controls the amplitude. This controls the pitch. So you can do that phantom sort of spooky sound like this. But if you're really, really cool and calm and you have the right position, you can even play melodies. I'll try. Number 6, Wendy Carlos switched on Bach, 1968. This was the first classical music album played entirely on a Moog synthesizer. Wendy Carlos is an absolute pioneer in electronic music, somebody who really had an intimate understanding of sound design.
First of all, here's a sawtooth wave that's coming out of an oscillator. It's a very low sound. If I manually turn this knob, you'll listen to the sound get considerably duller. I can do it automatically with what's called an envelope generator. That can be speeded up till we almost start hearing a plucked string. If we turn that around and make it open up instead of closing, it does this. Has almost a trumpet-like quality or trombone quality in this range.
The album Switched on Bach revolutionized how synthesizers were perceived and showcased the potential for creating really serious music. Stanley Kubrick was immediately hooked to that album and decided to enlist Wendy Carlos to compose the soundtrack of A Clockwork Orange. Well chosen. Switched on Bach was the synthesizer album of that decade. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments. Next! Number 5, Pink Floyd, On the Run, 1973. Straight out of the rock odyssey, The Dark Side of the Moon, On the Run begins with the iconic obsessive synthesizer ostinato played by Roger Waters on an EMS Synthi AKS. This was a portable modular analog synthesizer made by a tiny company in London, Electronic Music Studios, EMS. Just a handful of these remarkable synthesizers were ever made, contributing to the mystique of that defining moment at Abbey Road when the synthesizer made its grand entrance into the world of rock and roll. Next! Wait! You forgot to subscribe to this channel! I'll drink this tomato juice while you do it. Done it? Next! Up to that decade, the synthesizer had already been eerie, eccentric, experimental, powerful. But now, it was gonna become epic. Enter number 4, Vangelis, Blade Runner soundtrack, 1982. Just 2 minutes into the movie and we get catapulted into the future. For this majestic and solemn moment, Vangelis wisely chose Yamaha's monster synthesizer, the CS80. This beast is capable of very complex textures thanks to its touch-sensitive keyboard, aftertouch, and ribbon control. Together with its dual 8-voice architecture and an ocean of wires, the stars really seem to be aligned for one of the most memorable moments in synthesizer history. Next. Number 3, Daft Punk, The Funk, 1995. Roaring from France, masked duo Daft Punk came with an obsessive, rude, in-your-face synthesizer riff that dominated the electronic music scene of that decade. Their weapon of choice? The small but mighty MS-20 monophonic analog synthesizer. This synth was famous for its aggressive filters and semi-modular design that allowed it to do this. Let's turn up oscillator 1, right? And then I put it as a pulse wave, and then I am going to add the second oscillator. So we got this plus that. Yeah, something like that. And then we're gonna use the low pass filter. See, it's got this peak, which sounds pretty cool, right? So we keep it around there. And then we also use a little bit of low pass. Okay? And then finally, we start adding some modulation from this ADSR. Yeah? And then we add a little bit of attack, bit of decay, a little bit of release, and then we try and make it ring. Our job isn't finished because now we're going to take the output, pass it through this external processing unit, which will give us just a little bit more distortion. I think I got it. By the way, if you want to learn to do what I do, you can check out my Music Producer Gold Guide, where I explain synthesizers, music theory, music production, and a ton more. And I'll give you 25% off right now. Check out the link in the description. Next! Number 2, Usher, Yeah, 2004. This innovative combination of R&B, hip-hop, and electronic music won a Grammy Award, went platinum, and with its hypnotic, inescapable 3-note riff propelled synthesizer power into the new millennium. The sound is reminiscent of 90s rave music, and it can be recreated with just a few moves. Take 2 sawtooth oscillators and detune them. Add a bit of portamento, add a bit of reverb, et voila! Next! And last! Number 1, Skrillex, Rock and Roll, 2011. Hysterical, turbulent, exhilarating, shadowy. Dubstep originated in South London in the late 90s, but it reached its peak popularity in the 2010s. Skrillex's rock and roll embodies the art of treating and chopping synthesizer sounds. I like to imitate its sound like this. Take a few gritty FM sounds like this one, and this one. And now play them on a sampler. Voila! And what about the current decade, the 20s? Has the synthesizer sound of the future been found yet? Or is it yet to be invented? Let me know in the comments. I love you. Boom!
man, I love his energy.
Definitely. And like you said, Pink Floyd definitely hooked me. Some
Yeah.
of those early sounds. Yeah.
Well, and I forgot about Vangelis. I had tons of CDs back in the 80s from him.
Nice.
Yeah, I was going through a new age phase, and he had it. He had the sound.
Yeah, I think 80s. I was definitely heavy into the Floyd at that point. Also, the Grateful Dead, naturally. But
Yeah, those were all monumental moments in synth evolution. And again, number 6, Wendy Carlos, absolute goat of synthesis.
nice.
Yeah,
One of the ones that I used to listen to a lot with Pink Floyd was either Momentary Lapse of Reason was a good album for that. Metal was one that I liked a lot, but also Adam Heart Mother was the one where that first song is like 23 minutes long, but it just has so much going on, and it's just such a journey, the whole song. So that's one of the ones I like to check out a lot.
Yeah. That's how you appreciate the classic synth sounds. And as far as the synthesizers go, also coming from at Dr. Mix, we're going to look at the synthesizers that likely produce some of these sounds we just heard there. There's a few of them that I had, a few of them that I used to go play at the music store and dream of having. Just couldn't get it into my budget back then, but these were the synthesizers to be desired back then.
The ones everyone wanted.
Hi and welcome to Dr. Mix. Today I'm going to present to you 7 synthesizers that completely changed the sound of music. These are not just instruments, they are turning point in music history. Stick around till the end because I got a free gift for you from my upcoming video course, Synthesizer Guru. My 43 lessons video course on every type of synthesis. So let's start with number 7, the Prophet 5. This guy. This guy is from 1978. It's a subtractive synthesis analog synthesizer. It's got 5 voices and it's got 2 oscillators. Yes, this is the first commercial compact polysynth. Famous sounds, the synth brass. All you need to do is close the filter a little bit of envelope, attack, remove the resonance, Merry Christmas! Next! The D50 by Roland. From 1987, this is the first example of linear arithmetic synthesis. It's got 16 voices and 4 partials, and it was the first synth to bring realism to synthesizers. It was basically a mix of sampling plus a virtual analog modeled circuitry. It had a massive impact on popular culture because of its very famous sounds. Let's check out a few of them. Fantasia. Not the right thing to play with this, but Sakuachi, number 66. Yeah, baby, the D50, I'm telling you! 44, Pizzicato. Is this famous or not? Have I earned your subscription yet? What do I have to do? Pray? Oh, the synthesizer guru. Come on, you can press the subscribe button. And also that button. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Number 5, the Fairlight CMI. The Fairlight CMI comes here from 1979. It's an additive synthesis digital sampler, and it sounds like this. This is real vintage, boy. It had 8 voices, and it's the first of its kind synthesizer workstation with sampling capabilities, additive synthesis, and lots more. If you don't have a Fairlight CMI, either it's because it was massive and it cost like an apartment, it's super rare, impossible to find. That's why we have plugins for it. As I explained in my synthesizer course, this one, I'm gonna play you now a little bit of that. Okay, fundamental boost. So this is the fundamental. See, this is the resulting waveform. We can do this as well. Ooh, I like that. I look at the Fourier transformation. Isn't that crazy? Next! Number 4, the Mini Moog. Look at it. Look at it. Isn't that beautiful? The Mini Moog came to Earth in 1970, and it changed everything because now we could take a synthesizer in the recording studio, at gigs, and give guitar players a run for their money. Monophonic, 3 oscillators, portable, big sound. Let's turn on the 3rd oscillator and... Number 3, the Yamaha VL1. The first example of commercially available physical modeling synthesizer. This was made just in a very small limited edition in wood, and it's the first time that actually we could get the technology to work. Famous sounds? The Flobo. I mean, this is 1994! This is crazy! Another famous sound is probably... oh, the sitar, for sure. Let's not forget number 27, C flute. Sounds like I'm having an asthma attack. Yamaha DX7. This instrument from 1983. It's so rare and it's becoming so expensive, I am saving for a second one. 16 voices, 6 operators, the first commercial FM synthesizer. It defined the sound of the 80s. Famous sounds? For sure, electric pianos. I should actually record this. Maybe not. But the DX7 wasn't just about great electric pianos, it was about this as well. bass. Yes, obviously harmonica. It had such an impact on R&B, soul, pop. But before we hit number one, I've got that surprise for you. The Synthesizer Guru Starter Kit PDF. Inside you will find all the essential building blocks of synthesis, signal flow, waveforms, envelopes, filters, and more. It comes in both dark and light versions for easy print. Click below and download your free Starter Kit PDF. Number one, the best-selling synthesizer of all times, ladies and gentlemen, the Korg M1. So epic. From 1988, this has a sample and digital synthesis, not too dissimilar from the Roland D50. They came up with some brilliant presets. Universe. 16 voices of goodness. These sounds are timeless. Check this one out. Not to forget, man, this sounds divine.
Oh, damn, I just got punched in the face.
Nice. The M1. The M1 you wanted.
I can't believe that the M1 beat out the DX7. Somewheres out there, there are Korg and Yamaha people like fisticuffing.
Squaring up. They know. Yeah.
That was a big debate, actually, in the early 90s.
I mean, they can both be the best, can't they?
Well, the DX7 held a special place in my heart, but that M1, I tried to convince my parents, like, I need this. This is my next keyboard.
Yeah. And to me, I mean, even when I had that CZ1, it's like at the time, as much as I really loved it, like I didn't really fully utilize it for what I should have. Like at the time, I should have just, dove all in and just been in on keyboard for years and decades, right? But I just kind of put that all to the side and, moved on and did a little bit of guitar, then bass, and, all kind of coming back around.
Yeah, and that other Yamaha he showed, was it the VS one?
The V1, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, I never ran across that one. If I had, and the kinds of sounds that were coming out of that, especially the like weird fluty kind of sounds, I might have shied towards that. Yamaha was always it was just out of my reach of acquiring. Like every time that I did manage to get another keyboard, Yamaha was always a contender in which way I was going to go. And with the DX7, it was the price because I wanted it when it first came out, and it was still pricey. It got cheaper, but by the time it got into my price range, Roland had the D50, which.
And that was the question. When it comes to, when it's time to get another keyboard, what is it that prompts you to? Is it something that you can't do with your current one, or is it something specific that the new one does that you feel like you need?
Yeah, I think at that time during the 90s, it was, does it have the kind of sounds that I'm hearing in songs. And
Sure.
when I got the D50, it was because a lot of the songs that were coming out at that time were utilizing those patches, and I was like, I want that sound.
Hmm. Exactly. And then you got it.
Yeah. And I stuck with Roland. I'm still there in 2025.
Oh yeah. I mean, once you're in there, once you've got them all there, it's kind of like when people have, 5, 10 guitars. Like, how many guitars is too many, or which ones do you have for which reasons? There's certain, this one I can do this with, this one I do. I need this one for this song. There's always a reason why they have multiple guitars, but is there always a reason to get another one? Is the question.
Yeah, yeah. I think the other thing in the 90s for me, when it came to my choices, patch libraries.
Sure.
Back then, if you really wanted to download patches, CompuServe,
Hmm.
and before AOL, CompuServe and Quantum Link were the two services that I used to go on back then. And Yamaha and Roland did have great community where people would make patches and share them out. And with the Roland, I was like, oh, I got all these other sounds I can download.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
Expandability.
the DX7 library was massive back then.
Right. And so many good ones, like even just the ones he demoed. I mean, so many good choices.
Yes. I love them all.
Hmm. Excellent.
So that's at Dr. Mix.
Hmm.
I'm going to check out that PDF. I am definitely getting my synth groove back on. And between him and Sarah, like, these are the kinds of resources that I need to tap into to start programming my own sounds again.
Yeah. And again, just not being afraid to just dive in and start fiddling with the knobs. See what you find with all the different sounds.
Yeah, yeah. I want to jump back into it to make some sounds, to
Yes.
program my own, and get that part of me that I should have tapped into when I was young. Now with the VSTs that let you tap into these engines, I don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to play with these engines anymore.
Yeah. And even that library he was talking about before, the VST with what is it, thousands of different hardware synths in there. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Crazy.
The VST route nowadays opens up all these synthesizers we've looked at and these different engines. Um, we've gotten past the physical barrier at this point, and the accessibility when you do have it as a VST, how it can tie into your DAW so much more fluid than having to have that spaghetti of cables that we saw in that Yamaha in the
Yeah.
video before. It's
Imagine
so
trying to
much.
troubleshoot, a bad connection somewhere in there.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. Yeah, I think I'd rather do a network routing patching than some of these.
Yep.
So thank you at Dr. Mix.
Hmm.
Again, great information coming from him. He is the synth guru.
Hmm. And he's got all the
Love
good
his,
toys over there for sure.
yeah, love his energy.
Hmm.
And speaking of great channels for information, Sanjay C. He is like my review king when it comes to MIDI gear, the stuff that I love. He covers it all, and he got to go to the Brooklyn SYNTH EXPO this year
Nice.
and got to play with a whole bunch of toys from a lot of different manufacturers. He's got a list here. You're going to see stuff from Roland, Kurzweil, the Synclavier,
Hmm.
uh, Novation.
Hmm.
These are heavy hitters in this market, and uh, I'm curious what piqued his curiosity in a room full of toys.
Hmm. Exactly.
And this one's coming from at Sanjay C over on YouTube. Not our first rodeo with him. Like
Yep.
every once in a while, I got to get my gear on. I see cool new gear pop up in our feed, and he's
Hmm.
usually the one introducing it to me.
Exactly. checking out all the good stuff.
Yeah, and here he's going to be introducing me to a whole bunch of cool new gear coming out in 2025.
Brooklyn.
I'm back for the 2025 Brooklyn Synth and Pedal Expo. I'm checking out all the new gear and some crazy stuff too. Let's go.
We have the form here. It's a custom Tactive key bed that's formed to work flawlessly with our aftertouch. It's 100% analog. We have the second oscillator. You have two options to also use it as a LFO for modulation, and of course that iconic Pro 1 layout.
The TR-1000 is Roland's latest rhythm creator. It's a drum machine that uses analog voices from the 808 and the 909. It also has a ton of digital drum voices that we spent a few years almost digitally circuit bending to make them do interesting things. So like the basic digital models are from ACB and old legacy Roland stuff, but we're able to bring out new shades and colors with that. It's got a full sampling engine in it as well, with sample slicing, loop support, time stretching. It's basically like the most complete rhythm machine we've made to date.
Forso Electronics, they're from Denmark. They got a step sequencer, the T1, which is a amazing step sequencer. All our knobs are actually encoders, so to keep you going and trigger my chords, my patterns, my arpeggios, do my steps here. And then we got this guy, which I love. This is the S4 sampler. It's a granular sampler, 4 tracks. It has several different modes. The ability to sample off of a disk drive or the internal disk. Tape, which allows you to do like a tape loop, you know what I mean, up to 30 seconds with the internal mic as well. The effects on this are what's crazy. So you can load up one of your samples and have it playing. And then from there, I can go into my pitch effects right there. EQ, filter, cut off. My favorite part right here, the dynamics. Compression, noise, drive, and just keeping the creativity going is what I love about this. This unit does so much. Bit crush too, of course. And then our time-based effects, delay, reverb, make it as huge as possible, decay up to 1 minute if you want. You know, and then the cool thing is we can run this in bypass mode, so you can just use your effects.
Moon is a smaller sibling of Noon, which is this device right here. So this is an 8-channel passive drum synth, and this is a 4-channel passive rhythmic instrument, we'll call it. It has no power supply, and it utilizes rhythmic voltages from CV and gate in order to rhythmically power 4 different analog circuits. So it has a very chaotic tone because you're listening to the power cycle of those circuits. You can also send it additional CV into the even and odd channels here, and a lot of texture and crazy movement. And then you have input attenuation on the control voltage, and also between channels to get rhythmic modulation between different channels.
So this is a very famous sound that you might recognize from a famous Michael Jackson song. Right?
That's the sound we all know and love.
Synclavier is a legendary brand. It's been around since the 80s, right? And so what the Synclavier region is the sound design portion of those systems from the 80s, which did sound design, sequencing, and hard disk recording. This is the sound design portion. Your carrier can either be an additive waveform made up of multiple harmonics. It can be a subtractive synthesis, right? So here's subtractive, here's additive. Right, so there I can come in and add some FM to that. So there's, of course, we also support samples, and then you can re-synthesize those samples into what are called additive synthesis frames, and then start manipulating them. So you could take something that was spoken word, re-synthesize it, and then play that as chords and all kinds of stuff.
How you doing? Nigel here from Arturia. We're showcasing our Astrolab. We got a new 61 plus an 88 key as well with the Fatar key bed. We are also offering the flagship Polybrute. our new Mini Freak vocoder and our Micro Freak, and just showing off our Analog Lab Pro, brand new sounds, everything else. Cool thing about this is, you know, every time there's a new V collection, there's a new firmware update, so the Astrolab gets to grow with you. We just demoed this unit too for Mark Ronson, and he loved the unit. So I made a joke too. I told my wife, I'm like, we're never cleaning the keys again. I'm like, wiping them down.
This one here was played by Mark Ronson.
Yeah, this one right here. I've actually got the video right there. So
wow.
It's like a museum piece now.
Okay, so I have an Astrolab. I'm willing to give you my Astrolab.
Just for this one, that Mark. Yeah. Yeah, he definitely, there's a video right there. You can catch the video of him doing it. Like, he was freaking out over the sounds. It was just the creativity that we have. And that's the biggest thing with Artsuria is that we want to keep everybody on the unit inspired, constantly inspired, but the sound quality is what we're big on.
All right, there's not only synths at this expo, but you've got a ton of pedals. There's 2 rooms of pedals right here. You got everything from fuzz to reverbs to delays to everything, and lots of companies that do special, unique, really unique stuff. So a lot to check out here. The crowds are kind of bigger this year, so I've come after hours to get some content for you guys. Let's go.
So I'm here representing Soma Labs, and today we're showing off the Flux. This is an instrument that you play without touching, but by using magnets that we call bows, depending on the positioning of the magnet along the board here.
Does it have sounds built in?
This does have sounds built in, but we'll soon be releasing this breakout box that allows you to control other synths with it via MIDI or CV control.
Awesome. Okay, and you have something else here that is really cool.
So this over here is called the Terra. It's an instrument that gives you 12 notes on this side and 4 modulators on this side. You can set any of the note pads to any note, microtonal scales, drums, polyphonic synths, solos, basses. It does have MIDI out as well, yes, so you can control other instruments with it, and it supports MPE.
All right, I'm here looking at the Daydreamer synth with Jonathan. Jonathan, what's this all about?
The whole goal of this project was accessibility for education, to get everyone to have a polyphonic analog synth in their hands. So you got six oscillators here. You can select how many oscillators per voice, mono or poly mode. Each of the oscillators has their own VCA. They all share a filter, and then you got a PT2399 delay here. And you got features like LFO, glide / portamento, some MIDI controls, a little bit of noise added in there. So all your basic features for analog polyphonic synth.
And you're selling this on your website right now for $299?
This is the brand new Launch Control XL3. So we have 24 endless encoders, so we can, twist the encoder endlessly. 8 faders here, and then 15 different custom modes. So here we have this hooked up to Ableton Live, and we can control our effects and everything. But we can also use this to control hardware directly because there is 5-pin MIDI DIN on the back. Whether you perform live or you're producing in the box, it's super handy to have.
I was using this plugin that has like 12 faders on it that layer different instruments. And I was like, where am I gonna have like enough faders to actually start to control this instrument? I was like, wait a second, I've got the launch control.
And you can actually daisy chain a couple of these together. I believe up to 8 of these. So you can add an extra one of these and have 16 faders.
Oh my gosh. All right, I need to get another one of those.
We're showing Exelon, which is our pro quality Eurorack mixer, all stereo channels, CV control over all parameters, all analog signal path, and we built in all the features for medium to larger size systems and performance systems to give you the highest quality and the most hands-on experimental control. But we've been adding on to this system. You can see the modules here. So Exelon is the main mixer, 48 HP, 6 stereo channels.
This company's called Synthrise, and what are you guys showing here?
These are all adjustable desktop synth stands. They adjust in every direction, super solid and stable, and they fit pretty much every desktop synth you can imagine. This is our gear rail, so it uses the same hooks that all of our other stands use. So these are very strong injection molded hooks with rubber trim, and they can be moved and repositioned and flipped, so you can fine tune it to fit your gear.
I'm here looking at something really cool on the screen. What are you guys showing here?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Gene. I'm with Entropy and Sons. We're showing off our video synthesizer. It's a standalone device. It's kind of like an audio synth, except instead of making a sound, it makes video. So right now it's kind of being used as like a video processing unit, so it's modulating the camera feed. There's like tons of stuff it can do. You can go in and build your own presets. It comes with a bunch of stuff out of the box. Reacts to sound, reacts to video, controlled with MIDI, controlled with Dirac gear. So it's very powerful, and it just makes really cool like visual content.
We got a lot of stuff here. From my left to right here, the red one is the Fireball. It's a dual wavetable synth. The yellow one is the Lemon Drop. It's a dual granular synth. The pinkish one is the Razzmatazz. It's an 8-voice drum synth that uses FM and wave per voice. And then the Tangerine is a smaller, more compact version of our flagship samplers here, the Bitbox and the Black Box. And this is the Bento. It's an 8-track production machine. You could build out an entire song. You can perform with it, record and produce with it. We also have our wavetable track here, which is the entirety of the Fireball built into the Bento.
Oh, wow.
We also took the Lemon Drop, our granular synth, and we built that entirely into the Bento as well. The best of everything that we've done so far.
I'm showcasing a prototype. This is a new drum machine, and it has an analog drum voice to create your own samples, a digital sampler and sequencer. You can then put your sample in and work on your track immediately. So it's this fully integrated, fluid, analog digital drum workstation.
Proximity is a MIDI controller that transforms the air above the device into either a musical instrument or a modulation controller. You can do all kinds of things like moving the bow on a string instrument. You can send notes into it to dynamically strum through them. So it's very flexible. Everything gets saved to the device, and then you can plug that into a hardware synth, software synth, whatever you want.
I'm going to be trying this out on the channel sometime soon, so keep an eye out for that video. If you're interested in any of the gear that you've seen in this video, check out the links below, and hope to see you at next year's Synth and Pedal Expo.
Oh, damn, Sanjay, I am going to be checking out that video.
Synth and Pedal Expo. Nice.
Dude, we just got a free ticket to the Synth Expo there.
Pack it all in. Yep.
Uh,
Hit all of it.
He definitely hit up the coolest gear there, because every single one of those groundbreaking, innovative. You notice that like analog is definitely still going strong.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing is, I mean, as much as digital is good, there is always still that warmth. I mean, there's different things that people would say about analog versus digital, but it's just that it shouldn't be a one versus the other thing. It should just be they each have their place, right?
Well, I like how some of these manufacturers are blending the best of the analog and digital together like this.
Yeah.
What did you think of that magnetic
like that.
instrument? That's wild.
It's kind of basically taking the same concept that you work with an electric guitar, where you have the string vibrating above the pickups that are magnetic, and it's that interaction between the vibrating string and the magnet that's doing the job. In this case, they just have the pickups and a solid magnet that's in your hand, and it's probably a similar concept there as far as what it's reacting to.
Yeah, very interesting approaches they're taking to new controllers, new approaches to making sound. I thought I felt like it was like taking the theremin approach, like
Yeah.
but with magnets.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what it's all about. Like the idea there also is that it's changing kind of the idea is changing the pickup height, where if you had on a guitar, if you're holding a note down, like it's always going to be that same height to the pickup, and it's going to give you that same amount of volume. But if you're holding a magnet in your hand, by going up and down, you can more directly control the amount of signal you're giving at that point.
Yeah, and I love to see some of these manufacturers like Kurzweil, the Synclavier,
Yep.
they have a history in synth, and it's awesome to see them still going and
Oh
going
yeah, for
strong.
sure. Definitely. I like it.
Yeah, I'm glad that we kind of boned up on the different types of synthesis and everything before seeing all these toys. It helped me to appreciate like some of the things that these products that are coming out, like the pedals, where they took the different types of synthesis, and they've got color coordinated
Yep.
pedals to go with them.
Get them all in the right order and make sure you get all the modules that you need.
Yeah, it's like
Get it all together.
Skittles. I want to taste the rainbow.
The whole rainbow. Definitely.
Oh, I love this topic. We're gonna have a Synth 2.0 at some point.
Oh, yeah. It'll come back around again for sure.
Yeah, well, I gotta come around.
Always good on a Thursday.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took us this long to do a synth night, but glad that we did it.
Me too. And thanks everybody for coming with us. Always a pleasure to have you all along.
Yeah, it's
Lots of
gonna
good channels that we hit tonight.
it's gonna get me into like my EDM kind of mood. I'm ready to like load up some of these plugins and play around with some of those synthesizers.
Oh, definitely. Get some of the get some mad scientist wiring going on over there.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe I'll actually get a physical one, and I'll be like the operator.
I remember when it was it Reaper or Reason when it came out? Whatever.
Yeah,
When
Reason.
you'd be able to just spin the rack around and just sit there and wire everything up directly, it just made it make so much more sense from an analog standpoint.
Yes. Oh, that was fun.
Thanks again.
Now is next week Thanksgiving?
It's a good question.
It's got to be.
Probably.
Otherwise, we're
Gobble
what is it,
gobble.
the 27th. Oh,
That would be about right.
yeah. Then maybe next week we'll cover the gear that we're thankful for.
Or maybe we'll be eating turkey on Thursday.
Yeah.
We shall see. But if we don't see everybody before Thanksgiving, have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes. Oh, and we just got the WAG Summer Series videos all done, edited. They're currently being set up on YouTube, and we'll have the entire summer series available by next week.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, those who might have missed it over the summer will be able to catch back up before the winter series, which, from what I'm hearing, New Year's Eve.
Nice.
Gonna start getting the applicants for that.
Coming right up too. I mean, that's right around the corner.
Yeah, this year just
blew right by.
Yeah.
It happens.
Well, we will see you next week, and not sure about Sunday at the moment, but we'll be back on Monday for sure with Motivational Mondays with Wally, and we'll see you guys then.
All right. Take care.
Night,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear at 82. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn.